Today I have to repair a transport band belt tensioner assembly. I got in all the new parts. This is what it's basically going to look like when it's all done. It's for a left side machine. I've got my frame and I've got my my shaft, my bearings, my split rings to go on there. Everything's all set up in the order I got to put it on, and I have I don't have a press, a bearing press or anything, but I do have a 3/4 inch piece of pipe that I'm going to use that's going to go basically over top of the shaft, and it's not going to be any larger than the inner wheel of these bearings, so it's going to perfectly just cover that inner ring without hitting the actual plastic bearing sealing part. You can assemble this a lot of different ways. Just be sure you pay attention, take your time. Once you press your bearings on there, they're really done. It's kind of hard to get them off, so you don't want to have to backpedal and correct anything just because you got in a rush. So we're going to take our time here. I got some 3-in-1 oil. I got my first bearing. Just going to put just a little bit of 3-in-1 on the inside of this bearing. For starters, I'm just going to tap around the upper ring without hitting any of the sides. Just lightly. Take your time. Once it gets flush, you can go ahead and stop. You don't want to beat on the top of that shaft any and flare it out. Make it more difficult for you to get the bearing on the rest of the way. Just to get a little further, before I use the 3/4 inch pipe, I have got a socket here. It's just 11/16. I'm going to use it nice smooth edge. This shaft should go up inside of it. I'm going to use it to help guide this down a little further before I use the pipe. I'm checking. I don't want the inside of the socket to start striking against the surface either. So I'm just seeing how much depth I have in there before it bottoms out. I'm going to go ahead and switch to a 3/4 inch pipe. going to add a little bit more lube back to the shaft, both parts. There's a little bit of adhesive, a little bit of waxiness on this shaft. I believe it keeps it from rusting in storage. Careful, once you drive it so far, it's going to drop because there's a thinner part on the shaft. Don't hit so hard that it goes down to the next part and messes up that bearing, that inner ring. Now, as I'm starting to tap, I'm starting to feel it moving easier, so I know it's halfway through there. So I'm going to slow down I'm going to ease up on how much pressure I'm using to drive this down. Just like that. Now, as I get it started on this next section, I'm going to tap really light and slowly, evenly around, to make sure that it goes on properly. And I'm just going to drive it enough to where I can clear to put my split ring on. I'm not going to try and force it into that sidewall of the larger part of the shaft here. Alright, should be enough room for the split ring. And this is one of those steps you want to keep in the right order, because if you went and put the other bearing on, you can't get that split ring on properly without compromising the split ring. So we're going to put it on first. So I'm going to install my first 17mm retaining ring. I'm opening it up just wide enough that it goes on the shaft. I'm not going to spread it too much. I don't want to damage it. Check to make sure it seats properly into the cutout section. And I need to go ahead and put my other split ring, my other 17mm retaining ring on. I made sure as well that it is seated into its notch in this position. Hope I got you in the right area. And then we're going to bring the other bearing down to it, and then we're going to lock it in. And you wouldn't want to drive the bearing into that ring and mess it up. So put a little bit more 3-in-1 oil back in the new bearing. Started it as well again. Just light taps from side to side all around it. Only on the center ring, not on the outer, only on the center ring. Now that I've got it flush with the surface again, I'm going to use that 11/16 again. Go ahead and drive it down. You don't have to use 11, just whatever size. It could be metric. Just whatever size you need to use to make sure that the shaft will go in the center, but it's not wider than the edge of the bearing of that inner ring. And I did choose the 11/16 only because it's standard, and we use more metric on everything, so I figured if I'm going to compromise a socket, I'm going to compromise a standard one. It's good to use a nice solid surface. I'm working off of this bench vise, the flat spot. But if you worked off of a wood table, you'd probably have more issues. You might want to try it on a solid concrete floor. Alright, so I'm as far as the socket can get me down. Now I'm going to go back to my 3/4 inch pipe. I'm always double checking, making sure I haven't hit that retaining ring yet. About a 1/4 inch away. About an 1/8 of an inch. See if I can get my other ring on yet. Not yet. Almost there. Good. Alright, now we're going to install our other retaining ring. I was just making sure that it was seated in the notch as well. This next step, I'm going to go ahead and put my retaining ring so that way I know how far down my key pin has to go. And I like making sure that the split of the retaining ring is on the opposite side of my key pin location. Alright, so now with the other split ring on, before I put the big pulley wheel on, we'll go ahead and put the flange that holds the bearing. Slide it down over everything. The tooth is on the outside. I got my key pin. Go ahead and slide my key pin down just to the retaining ring. And I'll line it up with the notch in the pulley wheel. Then we'll put our last 17mm retaining ring, and I'm going to put I got the key pin here. I'm going to make sure that my split in my retaining ring is on this side. So the key pin's this side, my split on the bottom, and we can flip this up. Take our other flange, same way, with the teeth on the back side. It's open from the base here. Slide it down. So that's going to end up securing that ring. Alright, so I'm going to take, you got your other pulley wheel. The system that tightens it up is going to go on the inside of the assembly. Press it together. Just make sure that the shaft is flush with the bottom of this. I'll just push it against a table or something. Then I have a 5mm Allen wrench, metric. Pretty decently tight, not too bad. It'll still hold on there, but don't crack anything out. Now it's time to put it into the frame. So we have the frame set up here. I've got the recently repaired shaft assembly. We're just going to spread apart the two flanges. You can spread apart just one and get by with it. We're just going to put it down in the center, raise it up a little. I'm going to bring the other flange over and tighten it up to it. And I've already got my with the ratcheting wrench. I can use a socket as well, but on this side where it's close together, there's not a lot of room to get a socket in between there. That's why I'm going with the ratcheting wrench for this. Problem with the ratcheting wrench is once it gets so close to this flange, the space is lost there, but I can get a lot of work out of it at least. At least I say that. I'm going to use the holes looking through, see if I can see that everything's lined up. Sure, you probably couldn't see it through there at the angle I was. There we go. Go ahead and start this other one. Sorry about all the movement. Just trying to get to where you could see it easier. What's going on. We'll just tighten the rest down. Pretty good. Alright, all set back up. Transport band, belt tensioner assembly.